My interest in this program was sort of twofold, I guess. I hadn't been developed in a while. I think, a lot of times we go to sort of what we think of as the dog and pony show, and it's not necessarily specific, and it's not really the kind of coaching that we'd like to, and it's not always tailored to sort of what our career goals are. We get a lot of that in schools, so I was sort of looking forward to the opportunity to get that, and I was excited by Jane's training opportunities. So that was important to me. Second of all, I was interested in seeing that excellence and leadership really exists in schools. I was kind of at a point before the summer started that I was kind of questioning whether or not it really can exist in a school. Just my experiences in the different schools where I've worked, and then just hearing other colleagues talk about their experience, and just I wasn't sure it really exists, and if it exists, whether or not it's sustainable. So I've really taken this opportunity as a way to network with the other principals that were part of this experience, and sort of see what their experience was, see if it's sustainable for them, if not, then why, and sort of think about those. And so the great thing about that is Mark Martin, great example. So he's proof that it exists. So that was a really important thing for me to see. The other great thing about that is Mark really coached me. I hadn't really been coached like that by a manager in probably like 4 years. So that was a really great thing. He's like, I think you need to listen in on this conversation, or I think you need to make this call, and I'm going to hear it, and I'm going to give feedback to you. And so that was something I didn't know that I would get, but I was excited to get. So, and then lastly, I'm like Joe, so talking about my presentation now, I'm in love with the crazy school that I started out in. I actually left sort of other jobs, in sort of a different path in education, because I realized that what I really like to do is be in a school and work with teachers and other staff members who like being around children, and I love managing people. So I actually had one moment in one of those other roles where I was like, if I won the lottery today, what would I do? And my idea was I'd buy Patterson High School. So this is just sort of my ideas for a starting place for what I do. Maybe not with the money I have from the lottery, but sort of realistic ideas for a starting place for making Patterson the best high school in East Baltimore, because I think that's sort of what the goal for that school should be. So for those of you who don't know, it's in a unique location. It's near a lot of the places where a lot of young professionals like to go out. So it's a real great opportunity, kind of in the way that Mark's school is a great opportunity. It's in a neighborhood where a lot of people are starting to have families, and a lot of them would like to stay in the neighborhood. But a real issue is the fact that there aren't good school systems in their students too. So that's definitely a great point. The other thing is it's right across the line between the county and the city. So Patterson receives a lot of students and also loses a lot of students who sort of lie about which side of that line that they're on. So it has a really unique opportunity to gain students, because of that. So rich history and tradition. One thing I learned about my school last year and why I'm very committed to being a neighborhood school is, and rather than a charter or sort of a new school. I was in a school last year that had been around for 3 years, and it had no tradition, it had no history, it had no culture. And unless you open a school with a very, very disciplined mindset and plan for how to create that kind of culture, and you have a vacuum of that, bad things fill that vacuum. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to change. So the beauty of Patterson is it's a 100th graduating class in the next 5 years. I haven't had anybody be able to tell me exactly which year it is, so I'm going to find that out when I go back. But so that's a very exciting thing. There aren't many schools in Baltimore anymore that can say that. So for those of you seeing here spring, Patterson Park High School. It's not from this school, Chad's school. It's actually from Patterson Senior High School, which back in the day was in Patterson Park. Often referred to as Patterson Park High School, Patterson Senior High School. It's famous. In part it's famous because there are a lot of famous alumni. Founder of GoDaddy, Patterson alumni. No one would ever imagine that, Baltimore City School. Founder of H&S Bakery, right down the street, does over 2/3 of the buns for McDonald's, multi-billionaire, Patterson graduate. Peter Angelos. I can't get this straight on whether or not he actually graduated from Patterson, but he did attend Patterson, so owner of the Orioles. And then a newer alumni within the last 15 years or so, Joe McClinsky. He owns a consulting firm, sales consulting firm called EntreQuest. He's a Hopkins graduate. So throughout time there have been some really noteworthy alumni and people doing great things, and they all seem to care about the school. changed. This is sort of more what the students look like. You know, we have a very, very diverse student body. It's the most diverse school in Baltimore City. Students from 40 countries, 20 languages. I've had students before travel 2 hours each way just to come because they love the school and they come from another country and really appreciated the supports they were getting. And so an important piece about the changes over time, Patterson was moved away from Patterson Park about the time of desegregation. So there obviously were some racial tensions, particularly in this part of Baltimore, and so it was moved out to the county line because some people didn't want to deal with these students. Actually, during my teaching experience, I got a real dose of that. We used to play our games at Patterson Park at that football field with lights. In fact, the reason that that field has lights is because Patterson won a grant, the football coach won a grant to get lights on that field. About, I want to say like 8 years into using that field, there was a shooting outside one of the football games, totally no student, from Patterson, no one associated with Patterson involved. But after that shooting experience, we were forced to leave Patterson Park for the football games. They moved us back to our school, and now we play some games at Poly and that kind of thing. So just sort of the general attitude about the student population, not the grades. So competitors. I think one thing that Patterson needs to do a better job of in its turnaround process is sort of doing market studies. Who are we going up against? What kind of school do we want to build? Are we going to be sort of assemblage of a bunch of different programs, which is kind of what it's felt like for the last 15 years or so? Or are we actually going to be strategic and build a school that people want? So competitors in the city, Dunbar, Mervo, insert name of new small school du jour. So a lot of those have closed, a bunch of new ones have opened. They drain a small number of students away, but there are enough of them that it does siphon them away. There are a lot of people not happy with some of those new schools. So Patterson again has a real opportunity to make something, turn to be something that people want. So county, again, because of that unique location, there's an opportunity to compete with county schools. And also just, land-wise, there's not a great distance between us and a lot of these schools. So, we got Camden High School, Dundalk, both schools that have not done real well, so we could become a better option. Cadabsco, it's arts magnet for Baltimore County, and then Eastern Tech, which is sort of like a STEM kind of magnet school for the county. So that's probably the best of all of them, but I would like to see a high school like Patterson not just want to compete with schools in the city, but to compete with the best schools in the county. So the private schools, again, some of them, they have their strong traditions, but some people go to them just because the school in the neighborhood is awful. With the recession, again, a really great opportunity for Patterson to reclaim students. We got Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Catholic High, Archbishop Curley, which only serves boys, and St. Francis Academy. So this is Greg. I want you to meet Greg. So Greg graduated maybe a decade ago. I didn't personally know Greg, but I know Greg's story. Greg had severe learning disabilities at Patterson. He could barely read. It was largely due to his, not an effort, but literally a legitimate disability. He graduated from Patterson. He got his credits. He couldn't read. He barely got any support. He did get support from one person who was associated with his football team, who basically taught him how to read and write, just as much as she could. Greg graduated and got into a community college. He then spent the next 8 years in a variety of community colleges and eventually graduated from college after receiving some pretty great support at one of the community colleges. He was given assisted reading and that kind of thing. So he graduated from Limestone College in South Carolina. But Greg, to me, sort of represents the fact that we're graduating students who are not prepared. No one should have to pay for 8 years of college. It's unacceptable. So that's sort of what Greg represents. This is Sierra. Sierra sort of embodies why students come to Patterson. Something I want to change is people making assumptions about why students go to schools. Rather than actually ask people why they're choosing to come to the school, people make assumptions that, oh, we need this CT